Hello, everyone, and welcome to another show of Secrets for an Inspirational Life. How are you all? I hope that everybody is well and looking after themselves. Today, here in the UK, we have rain, which I think is much needed, as I just got really tired of watering the garden all the time. So, small mercies and all of that. But thank you so much for joining me today. And today I have a rather wonderful guest, actually, who has a fabulous story about how he was a former Royal Engineer in the British Army, and after leaving the army, trained to become a soft tissue therapist, and that has now led to him being sought after internationally. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce to you John Baker. Hi, John.
Hello. Thank you for
Well,
having me.
thank you for coming. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well.
What have you been up to? How are you coping in these days? I'm always asking my guests that now.
Yeah, I suppose I have been lucky enough to get outside and enjoy some of the sunshine, doing a lot of cycling, a lot of running, and to equate for all of the extra calorie burn, I've been delving into the history books and doing a bit of baking, which I haven't done for a long time, and making all sorts of
So,
sweet
what's the
treats and
latest?
goodies.
What's the latest thing that you've been doing?
Today was some Belgian buns, which
Oh,
turned out
wow.
quite nice. Yes, they were very good, very nice.
Is it a new recipe every day?
It is. It's getting in touch with some old recipes and things I used to bake a lot when I was a kid with grandparents and my
Oh,
mum, and also experimenting with things that I've tried from various places all over the place, and just chucking things in a bowl and seeing what comes out. Really.
and it works, does it?
Well, some of the time it does. Most of the time it does.
No
And when it
complaints
doesn't,
from
well,
the
it's just
family.
no, exactly, exactly. And if it doesn't, it's just a learning opportunity, isn't it, to
Absolutely.
try a different recipe next time. So
Absolutely. Well, that's a very good way to keep yourself occupied and the family rather happy.
absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you again. Thank you, John, for joining me today. I'm really pleased that you've been able to come on. And I gave a little introduction, which really doesn't do you justice. But as I said, you were a former Royal Engineer in the British Army. And after leaving the army, you trained to become a soft tissue therapist. And now you work internationally as well as here in the United Kingdom for the Ironman events and sports teams such as the British Bobsleigh team, the Argentinian Rugby Team, and the Jacksonville Jaguars American football team. Wow. I was worried how I
Yeah,
was going to get all of that out. And you're also writing, I think you're halfway through a book about well-being and motivation and mobility and training, because you deal with a lot of athletes as well as day-to-day people. Is that correct?
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So
Tell us a little bit
right on
about
all
what you
counts.
do. Yes.
So yeah, so like you say, I'm a soft tissue therapist. That's my sort of my main job at the moment.
Explain that to the
Um,
listeners, just in case
so
they don't know.
it's one of those roles where you might have heard people call it sports remedial massage, sports massage, deep tissue massage. All of these sort of things are all sort of encompassed under this bracket of soft tissue therapists. It's really the style of treatment for addressing everything that isn't bone, basically. So your muscles, your ligaments, your tendons, connective
Hmm.
tissue, and really how that works within the body and how it can manifest itself in all sorts of different problems and issues and injuries
Okay. And how
throughout us.
So tell me, you were in the British Army and you left. What made you get into this work? What inspired you to become a soft tissue therapist?
Yeah. So you really it goes back to when I was at school. And growing up, I never really had a clear picture of I wanted to be this thing. I
Yeah.
always sort of, was around the idea of, yes, I'd love to be a PE teacher or a physiotherapist or a fireman or, um, fly planes or, whatever it might be. But
Mm.
never really any solid idea. I didn't really get on too well when I was going through school, sort of academically. So I did all right with GCSEs, but A levels, was really a non-starter for myself. So that sort of ruled the physio out straight away. I tried to go to sort of a college course, and that didn't really. I just wasn't ready for further education
Okay.
yet.
Mm.
Went through all sorts of various different jobs, never really finding anything that was as a permanent fix for me, nothing that really suited. So I ended up basically getting to about 20 and thought, enough's enough now. I've got to sort of make a change. Otherwise I'm going nowhere fast. So I ended up joining the army, which was by far the best move that I could have done.
A
It's
huge move. A
fantastic. Oh,
huge move.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm.
It's a complete lifestyle change for everyone and anyone. A complete shock to the system it was for me as well, and
I can
it's
imagine.
for most people. I think getting
Mm.
used to having angry people shouting and screaming at you during basic training,
Yes,
um,
yes.
but it's all needed. Um, and it was fantastic. I think a lot of how I am even today is down to sort of just the basic the basic core values that the army works off of in everything that it does.
And how long were you there for, John?
So I was in the Royal Engineers for 5 years. So not a
Hmm.
particularly long term career move for myself. I knew going in I wasn't ever going to be the 22-year career soldier. It was a stopgap between me being sort of wandering around doing a bit of nothing to what I eventually wanted to go on to do. I had no idea what that would be really.
Mm.
But then when after my time was up, I was made redundant from the army in all of the defence cuts back in 2013, um, which was great. I volunteered for it. I was getting to the point where I sort of was I'd run my course in the army and was sort of had enough of the army life, and the opportunity to be made redundant and paid to leave was one that couldn't be turned up or turned down. Sorry.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I sort of grasped that with both hands, and one of the things that the army do really well for people when they are leaving is try and offer various different courses and bits of advice um, in resettlement and readjusting people back to civilian life. And one of the options at this career fair that I'd been to was a sports massage course, and I thought, well,
Oh,
that's
okay.
in the realm of what I was interested in as a kid and sort of growing up, and I've always been interested in sports and athletes and athletics. So I thought it was a good way to sort of combine a few of those, and went off and did the first course, and that
Hmm.
was fantastic. It was really interesting. It sort of taught me the basics. It really was just sort of a basic course, but it was enough to show me that that's where my future lay, so I went off from there and went to the North London School of Sports Massage to study for my level 5 diploma, which was really much more of a professional qualification. It's not just for giving people a little bit of a rub. It was to actually learn how to
Well, there's a
to
lot to be
treat
said for
people.
that, you
No,
know.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, yeah, no, I think a lot of people do almost belittle. A lot of other
Yeah.
therapists belittle what that sort of massage does, but for a lot
Mm.
of it's definitely has its place. Definitely has its place.
Absolutely. I think everything has its place. And although I know massage very well, one of the things that people do really need is a physical therapy, and some need it in a different degree, and some, in a much more, I wouldn't say fiercer, that, I don't want to put people off, but this is really what you do is remedial in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it for a lot of the clients that I see, yeah, it very much is remedial in that people will be coming to me with a problem or an issue. Be that either that they've been surfing a desk for 12 hours a day and they've got, necks and backs that are absolutely solid, or it's the other end of the spectrum and they're athletes and they've been training for 40 hours a week and their body just needs a bit of TLC. Both things are going to have a massive impact on posture and alignment and how the body works. And like most things in life, we want to be in that sort of safe middle ground and not at one extreme of being too flexible or too stiff or anything else. And if you do too much of anything, you're going to be pulled one way or the other. So it's just about reintegrating everything back into being that nice, happy place in the middle.
So when, John, somebody comes to you, whether that be an athlete or somebody who does a gardener or someone who's at the desk, is the consultation and is the advice that you give, of course, it's tailored, I suppose, to each client, but is that all very much an individual exercise for each one? Do you specifically work with everyone from the beginning to the end? Do you do a course of treatments? How does it work with your practice?
Yeah, so I don't really, I get some people coming in with, injury, like for example, if I get a runner coming in who's got an Achilles tendonitis problem, so like some stiffness and pain in the bottom of their Achilles, I roughly know how long that you will usually take to resolve itself, and maybe 3 or 4 treatments I'd expect to see some improvement, but I wouldn't necessarily say that to the client. Some people want to know how many treatments is it going to take, but I can't tell you that because there's so many variables as to how and why. Yes, I might see you, if it's really a bad injury, I might see you once a week for a couple of weeks and then start spreading them out to maybe once a fortnight, once a month, whatever it might be. But that hour that I see you for, or half an hour that I see you for, in the course of a week is a drop in the ocean. It's not very much, it's going to kickstart things and get things moving. But unless you do the stretches, which we'll talk about, or do the strengthening exercises, or, stop doing things which are causing issues, then you're never going to progress. So it's just a bit that sort of education process, really, about how people can resolve issues themselves. I'm more of a facilitator of healing than a healer, if that makes sense.
Yes, you teach people really to allow the body to heal itself.
Yeah, so exactly.
Because I know a lot of people, especially, it is something where the therapists or healers, however we want to call them, we can tend to rely on them a lot. But the point of it all is to teach us a way that we can be independent of that and to try to take our lives in a different direction to make us more mobile and aware of our well-being. Is that something that you do? Do you give exercises? Do you give nutrition advice? What sort of things do you do?
Absolutely. I always try and offer as much advice as I can, be that within my remit, if you like, as a sports massage therapist, soft tissue therapist, or just from my own experiences, of things that I know that work. Pretty much everyone's chronically dehydrated most of the time, so I'm constantly telling people to drink as much water as physically possible, pretty much. Things they can do to change their diet.
How much do you think is enough?
How much is enough? Well,
enough water? There's so much out there. I always say to people, well, how much is enough? And they say to me, well, you don't drink enough water. Yeah, but how much is enough? And it's like 1 litre, 2 litres, 4 litres, 5 litres. I don't know. What's your view on it?
Well, yeah, I think your body pretty much tells you. I always like to think of it, as soon as you start to feel thirsty, you're already sort of slipping towards the dehydration end of things. So if you're constantly thirsty, then you're constantly dehydrated. There's a lot of stuff that sort of says that some people can't even sort of tell the difference between the body's sense of sort of feeling of dehydration versus the feeling of hunger, because they're that chronically dehydrated. The signals just got completely sort of mixed up. So I've heard that. Yeah, I just think, if you've always got a cup of water or, teas, coffees, as long as they're sort of, like an Americano style coffee where it's predominantly water anyway. If you're sipping away on that, then there's more water going in than that's coming out. Then you're going to be all right. And the body's good at giving clear indications as well. So if you go into the toilet and it's quite copious and clear, then you're pretty much hydrated. Obviously, that doesn't account for people with other underlying medical issues and bits and pieces, but for general fit and healthy people, that's all you need to sort of know to look at, really.
It's a good indicator.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you must see a lot of people that come to you that have injuries, and they are probably very down about it, and it does have a huge psychological impact, doesn't it? Not being able to do the things that you have done before. Do you see that when they come in and they can't do something, and how it affects them mentally, and how do you go about trying to help them with that?
Absolutely, that's definitely something that I see, and I've seen both in elite athletes and in general public. It's if you can't do what you want to do, and especially if that's been 2, 3, 4 weeks, or even a couple of months down the line, that gets seriously annoying and can easily become sort of a bit depressive. And it's just trying to, instead of get people to focus on what they can't do, it's focusing on the little things that you can do. So you might not be able to go for that marathon run or 100-mile bike ride, or whatever it might be, but okay, you can walk up and down the stairs pain-free without having to cling onto the banister. That's more than you could do yesterday, right? So next step, let's get you to walk to the end of the garden, or you can walk to the shops. Or okay, now we're going to go for a little jog, and yes, you might only be jogging for 30 seconds, but that's a hell of a lot more than you were doing 10 days a month ago. And it's, if we keep progressing like that, then you're going to eventually get back to where you want to be. And just trying to shift people's focus onto that. And it was, the elite athlete that comes to mind was coming towards the end of his career, it's sort of safe to say, but had been a fantastic sprinter, one of the country's top sprinters, and he had several Achilles issues throughout his career, and every day would come in for treatment. And all he really wanted was a pat on the back and someone to say, it's okay, it's fine, go and train. And as soon as you sort of get over the fact that that there's nothing actually wrong with that structure, you can be quite forceful with the sort of I don't want to see you, it's fine, go away sort of style of approach. And that's what he wanted. Yes. He wanted that reassurance of, oh, I am fine, I am okay, because he knew how it took him a long time to come back from the last injury, and to re-injure it again would be, that would be the end of his career.
So in a way, you are also there as a mental coach.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely something which it was spoken about during my sort of training, but it's something which I've had to go and sort of research and further myself in pretty quickly after sort of setting up business on my own, sort of realizing that people are going to come in and lean on you, and it might not even be anything to do with an injury and issue. They might have had the world's worst week at work and just need someone to offload their stress at, who's just going to sit there and take it and say all the right words and ums and ahs in the right places. But that's what they need. Yeah. And if that's the case, then dump it all on my shoulders. I'm quite good at being able to listen to people's problems and issues and sort of not take them on board myself. I think that's something I've certainly tried or struggled with in my early days as a therapist, was those clients that are coming in and are very emotionally draining to have on the couch, and you just almost feel like a zombie when they've left, because you're just sort of they've piled all this emotional stress and weight on you, and you need to put up the barriers to almost stop their issues becoming your issues. Because for that hour and a half, whatever it might be that they're on the couch for. They are my whole attention, but as soon as that hour click ticks over, then it's the next person coming in. And if I'm not in the right frame of mind to be positive and upbeat and ready to help them, then I'm not much use to anyone, and let alone myself.
Yeah, because everything is energy. We are energy.
Absolutely, yeah.
And especially being close proximity to people who are well or unwell, in whatever state we find somebody in, we are sharing this energy. And tell me, how do you, because I know I know with my work also, you have to have a balance because you want to give your all. You also don't want to stop that stream of energy, which is sort of inevitable. It has to happen, that exchange, but you also have to put on a protective layer. So how do you deal with that, John? How do you protect yourself, that you don't burn out with all of, because it's burdens from people because of everyday life? What methods do you use?
I think when I'm sort of in my clinic and treating, and I'm in that situation where I have got that client who's offloading things, I'm quite good at trying to put myself in their position, and instead of looking at all the negative things that they've been experiencing and saying, whatever they may be, trying to I always try and find a positive twist on things, no matter what it may be. And
What did you call yourself? Did you call yourself, is it a spin doctor
yeah,
that
yes, bit of a
you
spin
said to
merchant.
me?
Yes, bit of a spin merchant.
Yes.
Like a bad
Mm.
newspaper reporter, always looking for the spin, but I'm always looking for the positive way of twisting absolutely anything.
Yeah.
And I think that as soon as whenever, mental health is massively important and is spoken about so much these days, but everybody's constantly talking about and looking for bad mental health, and people talking about what they can do to stop people with this and that and the other. And I just think, well, why not
Mm.
just talk about mental strength and how you can become more mentally strong and mentally resilient, so that all of these bad things that are out there, just,
Mm.
you can acknowledge them and go, yeah, that's bad. It's shocking that that's happening, but there's nothing I can do to change the fact that that's happening. So I'm not going to let it affect me,
Mm.
and I'm just going to, waltz on through life, which, is, I think a lot of that partly comes down to the sort of the military training of things, because, if the job needs to be done, the job
Yes.
needs to be done, no matter
Mm.
who, what, where, or when happens. So I just try to apply that in as good a way as I can, really.
It's a good way. It's a good method, and I think the army, I can imagine, has a good way of teaching that self-discipline. And I was actually talking to somebody the other day, a friend of mine, and he was saying to me, there's so many bad things in the world. And I said exactly what you said in a different way, but the same thread. I said to him, look, well, what about the good things? Why don't we accept the bad things as they are? That doesn't mean that we don't try to change them, accept the things that we can change and the things that we can't. But let's look at, what can we do that is positive? What can we do to build a greater resilience, mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally, however you want to put it? We need to focus. Now is the time of this, I believe, a great awakening with all of this that has gone on and is going on in the world, to change the shift of perspective. What do you feel
Yeah, no,
about that?
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think times like this can bring out the best and the worst in people, can't it? I
Mm-hmm.
speak to
Yeah.
sort of even just some of my friends when I've been having sort of conversations on the phone and whatever, to try and sort of keep in touch with people. And some of them, it's got a real
Mm-hmm.
mixed bag. Other people who are, sort of in similar positions to myself, self-employed and unable to work at the moment. So very much sort of sat at home twiddling their thumbs and hating it and just sort of thinking, oh, but I should be doing this, I should be doing that. But thinking, well, you've got, you've now got 24 hours of the day where you can do what you want to do, where you've just spent the last 10 years of your life working however many hours with your complaint being, oh, I would come out for dinner, but I haven't got time, or I would do this, but I haven't got time, or I would do that. I would read a book, but I haven't got time. Now nobody's got that excuse. Everybody, unless you're a key worker, everybody's got the time.
Yes.
And it's, yes, there's restrictions, but there's lots that can be done. And I think that's doesn't matter whether it's now or in a year or in 10 years time, and whatever the situation might be, there's always things that you can do yourself. And I think if you want to do something enough, you will create the time and create the ability to be able to do that.
I absolutely agree with you, because it is about what is important in life. And maybe this time now has come more than ever, is to really find out what is it that you want from your life. And if you are not happy with your life, then do something practical to change it. As you said earlier, even if it's a small thing, but a consistent thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a way of being able to progress and being able to do more than what you could do an hour ago or yesterday or last week. You can always find some way of squeezing that little bit more out.
Yes, and have you noticed something, John? I've noticed. Usually people say, I'm so busy, Mimi, I'm so busy. And I would say to them, what are you busy doing what? And it's really nonsense. I said, are you busy being busy? What are you doing? But now, absolutely nobody has said to me, I'm busy, which is actually a joy to hear. So when I said to my friend the other day, I said to her, what are you doing? She said, nothing, I'm sunbathing in the garden.
Yeah.
And it was lovely. It was absolutely lovely to hear that someone is actually enjoying life.
It is good, isn't it? It is good. I mean, something I've definitely noticed whilst being out and about, when I have, had to go to the shops, or been out running or cycling or whatever it might be, there's people in general, I think, are a lot happier now in a strange way, or a lot more friendly anyway. Certainly, when I'm running and cycling, well, it's a bit harder when I'm cycling, but certainly when I'm running around all the lovely villages we have around here, I always sort of nod at people if I've got my headphones on and listening to podcasts or music or whatever it might be, audiobooks. Or I always acknowledge people, wave at them, nod at them, smile at them even. And the amount of times before that people would look at me like, who's this lunatic waving at me? I don't know who you are. Whereas now you just get a cheery smile back, and you think this why? I hope this lasts. I hope this positivity lasts.
It's rather lovely.
It is wonderful. It is wonderful.
And it's brought people together as humanity, because I think we realise the frailty of life.
Yes, for sure.
And we realise we are really in this together.
Yeah.
There is no real separateness.
No. And I think it's taken something as drastic as this lovely coronavirus to create that, but it's, as it gives me being my little positive spin doctor. It's a good thing, because it's awful that there's so many people that have died, have been infected, and have lost people, and hopefully won't lose that many more. But the numbers are still going up with the death toll, unfortunately, aren't they? So hopefully it won't go on for too much longer. But if everybody can come out of it that bit more positive and a bit happier and a bit more appreciative of everything that they have got, then that's almost been a good thing.
Yes, there's so many people that have had terrible, terrible time with this, and we can't take away the tragedy of it all. But it's like in a war situation, and you know more about this, I'm sure, than I do, but there is always something that comes out of it that, I don't know, for the people that are left behind, it is sad, But we have to look towards a hopeful future. We have to do that. We can't give up hope, because once we've given up the hope to live, the hope for a better future, I think once hope is gone, everything is gone. And this is why really I wanted to do, this podcast. It was something that as I said, I was thinking about doing this for such a long time, and I was, pushed along to do it. But as soon as I entered into this sort of seclusion stage of life, I thought, there are so many people out there with so many amazing stories, like yourself, that we need to hear this. We need to hear that humanity is rather great.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of the most inspiring people I've ever come across are some of the athletes who have disabilities, because they know no limits, they know no bounds. They might not have a leg, or they might not have an arm, or some other less visible sort of impairment, but there's no stopping them. And if more people could have that outlook and that strength of character and strength of mind, then the world would be one hell of a place.
Wow. Can you imagine this power of all of us just making a difference to one person? That's all we have to do. Every person we meet, if we can make a small difference, whether, as you said, it's a hello, it's a smile, it's reaching out, it's not a fairy tale, it is a reality. We all have this power in our hands to make someone's life better.
Oh, without a doubt. Like you say, it might just be that a cursory nod or a little hello might be just what that person sort of needs, or someone to just go, "Oh, you're right," and taking that little bit of care and that bit of interest in someone is all it needs. Is all it sometimes needs to get someone to go, well, you know what, actually, and then that leads into a whole different conversation.
Yes, absolutely. And tell me, I know that you do a lot of endurance training. Is that right? I've got to get this right.
It is, yes.
Yes, because I know you're always cycling, you're running, and you're doing all sorts of wonderful things, and it's amazing, really, what you do. And I know that you're involved with a lot of sports teams and internationally as well, isn't it?
So I have been very lucky to work with some fantastic sports teams all across the world, and one of the ones that have probably had,
that's quite an accomplishment.
It is
wow, it is amazing.
And one of the ones who definitely had the biggest impact on me is the work that I've done across the triathlon world, at Ironman events and some challenge events as well, supporting. What is an Ironman is a long distance triathlon. I can't remember the distances off the top of my head. I think it's about a 4K swim, and then 112-mile bike ride, and then you run a marathon at the end. So pretty ridiculous. Indeed.
As you do.
And I've been fortunate enough to work with a whole host of I say fun runners, but when it's that sort of distance, they're not really fun runners anymore. Like weekend warriors, the committed, the very, very dedicated. Athletes amongst us, as well as some professional athletes.
And do you work as a therapist?
So I do the sports massage therapy for them. And I think when I started off working with these guys, about guys and girls, about 5 years ago, and I was fairly unfit myself, had no aspirations of ever doing a triathlon, let alone an Ironman. And slowly but surely, the enthusiasm that they all have and the stories, that's the more the bigger drive was the stories of people coming in and saying, oh, well, I'd never run. I had to learn how to swim. I'd never had, I couldn't do this, couldn't do that, but I wanted to. So I got out there and I did it. And here I am. I've now done, 10 Ironmen, or, might be my first Ironman or whatever it might be. And then it was, well,
is it a yearly
no,
thing,
so they're all over the
it
place.
work?
They're pretty constant. So
Okay.
most, or a lot of countries, most European countries that I can think of, and countries around the world, like there's loads in America as well, have an Ironman event, and it'll be, it's an annual thing in that country, but they're all over the place. And there's loads of other triathlons going on outside of the Ironman sort of brand. So they're everywhere. They're absolutely everywhere. You just have to sort of look for them. And the stories that people have got are just insane. And they're
what makes them do it mostly? Is there a predominant feature in their life? Is it
for some people they're very much different. I think a lot of people, it's they've either got a point to prove to themselves, or they're doing it to prove a point to someone, or just because.
Because they want
exactly
that they would like to achieve.
Exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing. It is a hell of an achievement, because you have to dedicate so much time and effort to be able to complete one, that it takes over your life, really. So the actual, they sort of, I think the actual completion rate for people on the start line of an Ironman event is up there. I think it's over sort of 95%. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's high. I know it's very, very high. And that's purely down to the fact that you don't get anyone, just turning up on the day thinking, I'll have a go at this. They've probably put in at least a year's worth of background training in the build up to that, if not, a lifetime of it. Certainly when you look at sort of the elite athletes that are doing it, and the professionals, they're just incredible. The dedication that they all have is just phenomenal.
Is it something, John, that you would
something
like
I have done? Something I have done. Yes, yes, indeed. So I completed my first Ironman in July this year, or last year, sorry, in Austria, and it was fantastic. It was all a progression from this feeling I had when I started working, and the positivity of everyone wearing me down from going, okay, I'm never going to do a triathlon too. Well, there's a local triathlon event in Bedford. I'll give that a go. And I quite enjoyed that. Okay, I'll do a couple more. All right, well then I'll do the logical next step of doing a longer distance triathlon. Unfortunately for me, I lost my common sense there and went straight from a sprint distance triathlon, which is 400 meter swim, a 20k bike, and then a 5k run, up to a half Ironman distance. So a hell of a jump. And then I did an Olympic distance, which would be the one down. And then I signed up for the Ironman Austria. And it was a bit of a surreal moment, really, when I crossed the line and sort of thought, wow, I've achieved that. That's done.
Did you feel
massively so. I think something which I'd worked on quite a lot through my training was my building up a mental picture of me finishing, and using that as my strength, my sort of reserve of energy to go to in times when both I was training or during the actual event itself, where it might be during training, or on a day where you sort of know you're getting up and you think, I've got to do some god awful swim in a freezing cold lake, and then get out and drag myself around, silly amount of miles on the bike, when all I really want to do is lay in bed, have a sausage sandwich, and drink as much coffee as I can. Exactly, and then eat it. But no, and then you sort of go back to that picture and that image and think, okay, to get there and to do that, I need to have the mental strength to push through this little barrier, because if you can't beat that barrier, then you're not going to get through sort of the race. And it was mad, I sort of built up this big picture of exactly how the sort of it would feel running across for the Ironman events. They roll out for the last sort of probably 400 or 500 meters of the run course, which is the last aspect of it. They roll out a red carpet all the way up to the big finish line, where they have sort of the time. And the big thing is that as you cross the line, they have their announcer saying, "You are an Ironman," and it's pretty fantastic.
Wow.
And built up this whole image of how it was going to be. And you know what, it was uncanny, the level of detail that was pretty much as I'd envisaged it. I thought of everything right down to sort of, I knew what I was going to be wearing, what my trainers were, what color my socks were, everything. And I think that level of sort of imagery really helped. And that's something which I speak about quite a lot, like you say, in this book that I'm sort of writing. It's sort of aimed at helping. There's definitely a focus on athletes and in general, just people, with how, I speak about if you want to have these athletic achievements, but could be translatable to anything, anyone who sets any sort of a goal. If you can sit down and build up a mental picture of you completing it, then that's, I firmly believe that, we manifest what we think of. And if you can create that positive image of you completing whatever task it might be, then you're on the way to sort of achieving it.
What a story, a remarkable story, John. Thank you for sharing that, because it brings me on to the point of how thoughts are very, very important. And, as you said, this imagery of you succeeding and being on the red carpet and achieving all of this is because you had a focus. And this, I think, is important in life, is to have a focus, a discipline. Everything that's good has a discipline. People always think that freedom is about doing what you want when you want. And there is a certain freedom in that. But the greatest freedom is to achieve something that really, really is the pinnacle of your life, and to focus your energy on that. So I think listening to your story really has made me also think that you have to have, and to the listeners out there, you have to have a goal.
Without a doubt,
don't you?
Without a doubt.
Because otherwise, what's the journey about? If there's no goal, if there's no destination, how do you make strategic steps to achieve what you want in life?
Absolutely. I'm a massive advocate of sort of goal planning, both short term and longer term goals. It doesn't matter whether it's an athletic achievement or whatever it might be. If you have a goal, then as soon as you sort of work backwards from that goal, you've immediately then got a plan. And if you've got a plan, then there's nothing stopping you from executing that plan. And if you execute your plan, then you'll achieve your goal, and then you'll be looking back thinking, crikey, how did I do that?
Yeah,
exactly.
And then you move on to the next success story.
No.
It doesn't stop there, because then your life becomes, it is really a journey of succession of different experiences, and different things always happen in our life. Things that are good, not so good, adventurous, not so adventurous. But you have to have the goal. You have to have a purpose.
For sure,
in life.
For sure. I think one of the most dangerous things for anyone in any walk of life to do is to sort of just meander along without any plan or a goal. And that's something I sort of realized when I was, back in my teens, really, and working and not really getting anywhere. And that's why I ended up sort of joining the army. And that's what set me off on this road, is that feeling of not having a plan and not having that end goal of, well, that's not right, so I need to do something about it, sort of thing.
Yeah, I thoroughly agree with you. So tell me, John, what is your future goals? What are your goals? What are your What's the vision? What's the next stage for your life?
Well, that I suppose very much depends on how long this lockdown goes on for. But when eventually life does all settle back down and get back to some sort of form of normality, you know, it's continuation of my development as a therapist. You know, there's always more to learn, more ways of more. There's loads of research always going on in sort of the sports massage medical world, you know, of how different treatment approaches help, new research into different injuries and issues of various different treatment approaches. So that's something which I'm always on top of, which is, you know, always interesting to read up various different articles, trying to help as many people as I can through my clinic. So I would want to have a bit of focus. In fact, my next part of my lockdown sort of plan, if you like, is to plan how I can work some more on something else that I'm pretty passionate about. Is I've been doing some running coaching, and I want to sort of help see if I can push that a bit more and get some more people that I can help with that. So that's exciting times.
That's very exciting. Do you do personal
No,
training?
so I'm not a personal trainer, but I've done my running coaching qualifications with British Athletics. Okay. So I can take people out for runs, and as long as it's running related exercise, and I can twist pretty much any exercise going into how it can be suited into a running exercise. So that sort of is quite an all-encompassing sort of field. So no, I'm not a personal trainer. I am a running coach. Yeah.
Okay. And what would you know, I've been asking my guests, what one thing that has helped you through your life that you have stuck by, and advice really to people that maybe are finding it difficult or losing, you know, the zest of their dreams? What has helped you, and what sort of advice would you give in for them to keep going and pursuing
I think
their life goals?
I think I've always been quite good at never being too high and never being too low. You know, take the good times with some grace and be able to enjoy them, but at the same time go along the lines of having it with a bit of a pinch of salt, you know, and sort of saying, okay, well, this isn't going to last forever, but I'm enjoying it while it's happening. And then equally when things aren't quite working out as you plan to go, and well, okay, well, we'll go again tomorrow. Or, you know, then looking back and analysing the hows and the whys of not why things have gone wrong. I think as soon as you start looking at why things have gone wrong, you focus on what you're doing badly rather than what you're doing well. Look at ways you can do things better for sure, but changing that mental outlook on, instead of thinking, okay, well, you know, this was terrible and that was terrible, think, well, that was okay, but how can I make that from an okay to that was brilliant?
Focusing on the solution rather than the problem.
I absolutely hate people who have, hate's a strong word, I try not to use it, but I reserve it for these people who have got a problem for every solution. I can't stand them.
There's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people like that. But I think it's also a case of they don't know any differently. And if they were taught differently, or they have the help to look at things differently, you know, they could then possibly change that mindset. It is all about, as you know, what we think things are. You know, there's that famous saying, we don't see things as they are, but as we are. So it all begins with ourselves. If we change ourselves, not change ourselves, you know, people say, oh, you have to change and you have to do this to be something different. It's not. It's about, I believe, and I don't know about you, I believe it's about changing to become more of who you really are.
Couldn't agree more.
And I think you do a wonderful job, and I wish you all the best. And thank you so much, John, for coming on the show. I'm sure it's a wonderful story. I have to say, it's very
No,
motivating.
thank
So
you very
thank
much.
you, and tell the listeners where they can. Thank you, and tell the listeners where they can get in contact with you. Your website, your email, your social media. I let you
Perfect.
say it. I'm sure you'll say
Bro.
it in a much
Yep.
better
So
way.
I'm on Facebook. My Facebook page is John Baker Sports Massage. I have my website, which is johnbakersportsmassage.co.uk, and that has all of my contact details on there. It has a bit more of a chat about what I do professionally. And if you have any problems or questions, then feel free to ping me a message, and be it a text message or an email or whatever it might be, and get that ball rolling and see what we can do.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. I'm motivated already, actually, but I won't be joining you on the triathlon. That's for sure. No, that's just going a bit far, but I'm sure there's people out there who needed that motivation, something just to say anything is possible.
Fab. Good. Absolutely.
Anything is possible,
No, absolutely. Yeah.
isn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, once again for listening. Amazing talk, amazing guests. Please do get in contact with John at his website and his social media and make that change to your life. Thank you again. Look after yourselves and lots of love. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Secrets for an Inspirational Life, brought to you by your host, Mimi Novic. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast, and see you in the next episode. For more information about Mimi Novic and her books, music, and inspirational work, take a look at her website, www.miminovic.co.uk.